Well, hello everybody. I'm so excited to share my story today. I'm going to be sharing my natural birth story and experience. So buckle up, let's go. All right, so natural birth is something that I have always been interested in, and here's why. My mom actually is a certified nurse midwife and nurse practitioner. So she was my midwife, she delivered my baby, but all that to say is that I grew up knowing that my mom was gonna deliver my baby, therefore I was not gonna have an epidural and that I was going to have a natural birth because my mom works in a birthing center where they don't use epidurals and things are supernatural, are very natural. So I just knew that I was going to be delivering with her, and I just had accepted that I was not going to ever have a medicated birth because I wanted my mom to deliver my baby. So that's kind of my story, my backstory, and I'm so excited to get into it. My husband and I were trying for about a year to get pregnant with our daughter, and so it was so amazing when we found out that we were pregnant. It was like the biggest blessing ever. And then I immediately started seeking care at with my mom. So she was my provider, and that was so special to be able to have my mom be the one that was at like every single visit, that helped me through all the worries, everything that I was nervous about, all that. It was great. So one thing I believe is that a woman's body is designed to give birth, and I think that our culture has made it very medicalized and has made it a condition rather than a natural part of life. I think that there's a big shift back towards that more natural side of things, and just a lot more openness to natural birth, but I think that it is so important, and I'll kind of explain why, but come along and here we go. Okay, so pregnancy actually went super well. I didn't really have a lot of major complications or anything like that. I was not high risk. This was my first pregnancy, first baby, and I did have some like skeletal discomfort and such. I had a lot of tailbone pain, some sciatic pain, but other than that, nothing was really wrong. I did have to really focus on trying to gain weight towards the end of my pregnancy because I hadn't gained enough weight throughout pregnancy, but other than that, things went really well. So if we fast forward to what it looked like for me to actually give birth, here's what it was like. So basically I was 40 weeks and 6 days, and I was gonna have to be induced the next day. And when I say induced, that would be a natural induction. So at the birth center where I went, it was a natural induction process. So they were gonna use castor oil to start out with, and then a Foley bulb second. And I had prayed that I wouldn't have to be induced and that I would go into labor naturally. And then that night at about 9 p.m. I started having contractions. First, they weren't too bad. I had been having Braxton Hicks contractions for about 2 weeks prior to that, and I was just kind of like, this baby's never gonna come. And so the contractions that I was experiencing weren't super terrible, but by about 10:30 p.m., so I was like, we're gonna go ahead and go to bed at 9. And then by about 10:30, I was like, I can't just lay here. These are getting really uncomfortable. I think this is happening. And so I went kind of to the bathroom. I had told my husband, I was like, you try and sleep. I think I'm going into labor, but you try and sleep so that I can, so that you can sleep and you're not exhausted. And that way you can help me when I'm trying to have a baby here later. I just labored by myself for a while. I started timing my contractions, and they eventually got to where they were about 2 to 3 minutes apart. And one thing that I found that was very interesting, and that I had heard about labor, is that you'll feel like you need to poop at the very beginning of labor a lot, and I did. And it's cool because that's kind of the body's way of like getting everything out before the baby is like coming. So that I thought that was cool. But anyway, so I was at about 2 to 3 minutes apart. It was getting really uncomfortable, and I was really moaning through my contractions. I woke my husband up and I was like, hey, I need help. And then eventually I texted my mom, or actually I called my mom. She was right upstairs. But I called my mom and I was like, hey, they're every 2 to 3 minutes apart. They're really painful. I think we need to go in. And she said, okay. And so we went into the birth center. Once we got there, she checked me and I was at a 2, and then she stretched me to a 3. And then we went back to the birth room, and it's kind of cool, but that the birth room where we were at was the same room where my 2 little brothers were born. So that was very special. But anyway, so we went back to the birth room. I labored for a while on a birth ball, which is like a peanut shaped ball. And I liked that. I thought that was very comfortable, and I liked that. I mean, labor is super hard, so don't be like, it was the most comfortable thing in the world, but overall I liked the ball. And then my mom had me crawl in the hallway for a little bit. It sounds really weird, but crawling on your hands and knees actually is helpful in getting the baby down into position, and it helps to progress labor well. which is also one thing that I feel is really important for labor. A lot of times they don't let women move around in the hospital setting. Now that's changing a little bit, but in a lot of hospital settings, they don't allow that to happen. And so women are forced to just stay in the bed. And I don't think that that's the way it should go. So anyway, I labored in the hallway for a little bit, and then I went back into the room, and then I got into their like birthing tub for a while, labored in there, and at this point it was getting really painful. And I'm not gonna lie to you, like labor is so painful. Okay, so I mean, I just have to say that, like, yes, it's amazing, but holy crap, it is terrible pain. Contractions are crazy. So at this point, I was in the tub and I was just like, dude, there's no way that I can push a baby out. You know, I was just like getting scared. I was like, how in the heck am I gonna push a baby out? Because this is already so horrible. And so I was in the tub for a while, and then we looked, and it was about 5 a.m. and my mom checked me again, and I was only at a 5. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm exhausted, hadn't slept all night. I was in so much pain, and I was like, there's no way I can do this. And my mom had left the room, and then my husband was in there with me, and I just looked at him and I was like, Cord, I don't know if we need to go to the hospital and get an epidural, but I can't do this. Like, I literally can't do this. And it was such a sweet moment between my husband and I, because at that moment, my husband, he like started crying because he felt so helpless, and like he hated that I was in so much pain, and it was so sweet. But anyway, so I was just like, I don't know what to do. And my mom had come back in at that time, and she was like, hey, if you would like to, we can go ahead and administer the pain shot if that's something that you're wanting to do. And I was like, yes, give me that. We had decided previously that I was gonna take a pain shot if like I would be open to that in my birth plan. And it was called Nubain. I don't remember how to say it, but something like that. And so basically it's just like it's like a painkiller, to where it didn't like take away the pain really though for me. I just felt like it kind of made me loopy, and thankfully it helped me to kind of like fall asleep for like 3 minutes and then wake up and scream for my contraction, and then like kind of fall asleep and then wake up and scream. And I know that sounds crazy, but it actually did help me to like kind of have some energy to keep going. So then I labored for quite a while longer like that. Eventually the pain medicine kind of like wore off, and I was just kind of in full blown like really hard labor. And then about hour 12, my water still had not broken. My water did not break prior to me going into labor. It wasn't like I thought it was going to be, where you hear about in the movies how it just like big gush and everything happens. It wasn't like that. My water was still intact up until hour 12, when my mom, or hour 11, when my mom broke my water on the bed. So I was laboring on the bed at the time, and my mom said she was going to go ahead and break my water, and so she did. And then we went to the toilet to let that water finish coming out. And then at that point, I had labored on the toilet for a little longer, and then she checked me, and I was complete and ready to push. And that was like the best feeling ever, to be like, thank heavens, this is almost over. And so then I went back into the bed, and I was kind of like on my side, so I wasn't just laying there like knees up. The way I was sitting was more like on the side, so I was like laying kind of on my side. I had one leg up, and then one was kind of over to the side too. And I pushed for about an hour, and I didn't realize I was pushing for an hour. It felt like literally 15 minutes. And I don't know why it felt like it was so short, but when we looked back at the video, it was actually like an hour of me pushing there. So I pushed for quite a while, and I want to say that the moment that my baby came out, I was so like going up into labor, I was so fearful that pushing that baby out was going to be the most painful thing ever. No, it's the contractions. The contractions are the worst part of labor. The pushing out the baby is like cake. Like, you're like, this is what all this has been for, just to get the baby out. And so pushing the baby out, it hurt super bad. I remember it hurt really bad in my urethra, and I think in my like birth video I was like, my pee hole hurts really bad. But I pushed her out, and then they put her on my chest. It was so awesome. It feels really weird, it feels very slimy coming out, but then they put her on my chest. It was amazing. And I had some tearing. It was just, I think it was a 2nd degree tear, I think so, a 2nd degree tear, and I had to get 2 or 3 stitches, one by my urethra, which is why it had hurt so much, and then one, I think it was a perineal tear. So Not anything too crazy, but I remember afterwards getting stitched up, it was just like I just wanted everyone to stop touching me down there. I was like so ready for it to be done. And the thing is, like, birth and everything, like, in that whole labor actually went very well, but the downside of that story is that afterwards I had a postpartum hemorrhage. And we think that part of what caused that was because during my pregnancy, I was really super constipated. And so I was taking magnesium, but I was taking a ton of magnesium. So my mom had recommended a certain amount, and I was taking like triple that because I just wanted to be able to poop because it was so uncomfortable. And so she had not recommended that I take that much, but I was doing it anyway. And so then when it came for my, like after birth, the placenta comes out. And by the way, I was scared about the whole birthing the placenta thing, but it really was not that terrible. Like, it just like kind of comes out, like it's not that terrible. So anyway, I was still having pretty intense contractions after the baby was out and after the placenta was out, which was a little odd. Like, they were contractions to where I was like moaning through them, which from what I've gathered is not super normal. I don't know, maybe you could attest or say something about your experience. Maybe it was the same, I don't know. But anyway, so they would check my uterus because I was still bleeding pretty heavily. I would feel a cramp, and then I would feel blood come out. And so they kept checking my uterus, and it wasn't going back to a hardened state like it's supposed to. Your uterus is supposed to slowly like contract after the baby comes out to where it kind of goes back to normal shape, and then eventually a few days, weeks later, it's kind of back to its normal shape. But in the moments right after birth, it's supposed to begin that process. Well, mine was staying what they call boggy. So it was staying soft. So it would kind of contract, but then it would like still stay soft. And so what they think was happening is that because of the high dose of magnesium I was taking, it was causing my muscles to not contract like they're supposed to. Magnesium prevents muscle contractions, which is why people use it for like leg cramps and stuff like that for restless leg syndrome at nights. And so they think that might have contributed to my hemorrhage. So the time that she was born was just before 11 a.m. And by that evening, I had lost a pretty decent amount of blood, and I was like not feeling good. I had a fever. I had to be put on fluid. They were trying to get me on Pitocin to get my uterus to contract back to the way it was supposed to, and it just wasn't really working. And so by the end of the evening, my vitals were just my blood pressure was really low, my fever was up, like I just wasn't doing great. And so we made the decision to take me to the nearby hospital. I did take a ride via ambulance. It wasn't super scary though. We didn't have like sirens or anything. It was just very calm. And we took a ride to the hospital where I got a blood transfusion. So I had to get 2 bags of blood. I don't know how much that actually is. And then I did have to be put on antibiotics because they were concerned about my white blood cell count, I believe. I didn't want to be on antibiotics, but I also didn't want to get an infection and die. So after that blood transfusion, we requested that the hospital release us that night to go back to the birth center. We signed a little thing. It was like a release form that said, we understand that you don't want us to leave, but we're going to anyway. And so we went back to the birthing center, and then we were able to sleep that night. By the morning, I was feeling so much better. I actually like felt like I could move around. I was still pretty tired, but definitely not like as terrible as I was feeling the day before. So yeah, then that day we got to go home and we got to bring our baby home, which was awesome. But natural birth overall, I'm gonna do it again. I know that I want my mom to deliver my babies, and I thought that it was amazing to be able to feel that I bonded with my baby through that experience. It's just such a difficult like thing that you're having to go through with the labor and the contractions, that you feel so like close to your baby afterwards. Like, holy crap, girl, like we just went through that together. And it also just brought me so much closer to my husband, and then also to my mom. It was so beautiful. And then I just felt like it brought our family together. Overall, natural birth, it was awesome. I'll be doing it again. I believe that women are designed to birth their babies naturally, and that's not to say that every single woman is going to be able to have a natural birth. That's okay. If you're a high-risk pregnancy or whatever, I understand. There's no judgment from me, but I just personally believe that natural birth is the way to go. I hope you enjoyed this video. That is my take on how my natural birth went. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great day. Bye.